I found the drink, yeah, and I made promises on a day, yeah. I made promises of the man that I was going to be and what I was going to do. I couldn't find a place where I seemed to fit in or people that I could relate to, and it became very lonely. And I began to drink, and I was drinking, and I was drinking, and I was drinking because for some reason I felt like that would numb the pain a little bit.
Brother, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, I think especially with the time frame you have right now, I mean, it's only a matter of days until you set off. How you feeling?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I remember the first time I met you, it was a quick exchange, but, I was waiting for the chance to be able to speak to you again properly. It's been a manic time, mate. Not only am I training like an absolute demon, I've recently had a son, which is amazing. And I'm front loading a lot of projects to try and get them done, and over the line before this challenge starts. So I've literally been 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, cramming everything in. But I just think that's the way I must like things. Because if I have a spare minute or a spare second, it just feels alien to me.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's interesting you say that. I heard something that you said recently where I think it was for the first time you had a few hours to yourself and you thought to yourself, fuck this. As in, like, it was the struggle of being, I guess, within your thoughts in that time. And I guess by being so proactive gives you that opportunity to avoid something from that. And I relate to that so much. For me, it's always focusing on the next thing and the next thing. Sometimes it's a blessing depending on where you're at right now, but equally in certain environments, it can be a bit much.
I know for me, for a lot of my life, especially before I had my daughter, I believe that I underachieved. There was not a moment where I felt proud of myself. I didn't realize, I knew that I wasn't reaching my potential, And then my daughter gave me a sense of purpose that she made me realize who I was supposed to be. And when I finally had that direction, I had a goal and a driving force to actually be that person, to seem like I was reaching my potential and to do things that give me a sense of pride of who I am and what I'm achieving in the world. So I think for me now, there's a lot of things that not only I want to do, but that I need to do. Luckily, I have the opportunity to do it. And by getting rid of all the stuff in my life that doesn't help me or benefit me, it's given me the time, the energy and the mindset to be able to keep pushing and keep pushing. Because for me, I've got a legacy to uphold, and that's my daughter's legacy. I've got people to help, and that's children fighting cancer. I found a community of people that are struggling who I'm helping at the minute. And I've got my son and I've got a family that I want to be able to do my utmost best to be able to take care of. And, if you want to do all of those things, you don't really have the privilege of time. And that's good with me because my happiness comes from that.
I mean, I remember a very, very long time ago when you talk about our first interaction, it was only recently on another podcast, but actually for me, this was all the way back in Norwich. So we're talking like I would have been 20, maybe even younger.
How old are you now?
I'm 34 now, mate. So this is
I'm 33.
This is a
So
long
we'd have been
time
about
ago.
the same age.
Similar age. I don't know what it was. I don't know if you were in the night scene or something like that. But I remember you were friends with a few of the crew that were they were very, familiar faces within that city at that time, in that scene. And it was a different world. Mm-hmm. And I think the person that I envisioned that you were back then and the person you are now is completely different. And I feel like the path that you've taken now is completely different from that scene. Because a lot of those faces that I saw you with, if I ever go back to that city, I still see them there doing the same things. And it's not to say that they're not content in life. I'm sure they are in their own way, but it's just, it's fascinating to see the growth of you as a person.
Yeah. So certain things happen to you in life. People will never truly understand, and because I cannot quantify in words, how magnificent my daughter was, how much she impacted my life in every single aspect. I'll never be able to explain that. But if I can just say to you now, like, when I found out that my daughter got diagnosed with cancer, hands down, the worst moment I've ever experienced. When you're thrust into a situation from what seeming to be the happiest time of your life, the most content you've ever been. You know, for once, yeah, you've got a family, you've got a child, you've got what you've always wanted. And then to find out that child is ill, and not only ill, but has a very slim chance of ever recovering and a high chance of dying. Every single day that follows that point comes with severe trauma, comes with severe stress, comes with pain, comes with sadness, comes with anxiety, comes with a level of emotion that is really hard to put in a box and deal with every single day. Because my day went from being really happy and free and having everything I wanted to living in a hospital room for the next 6 months like that. And every single day, I was looking at a little girl with a smile on her face who didn't really know how poorly she was and didn't really know the eventuality of her life. And that was a very hard pill to swallow, you know. Um, and being in that situation, you know, it really changed me for several reasons. It changed me because it really made me appreciate what I had right now that was in front of me. It made me sit and embrace every single second of my life. It made me realize that I wasn't the most important person in this world. She was. And it meant that no matter how I felt that day, I had to be somebody who was a great person for her. And in turn, mate, like, I thought I was showing up for that little girl every single day, which I did my best to do. But in fact, she's showing up for me because I used to wake up in the morning and I used to wake up in shock and I used to look over and she'd already be looking at me smiling. I used to pick her up in the sense of love and the sense of wholesomeness and the sense of happiness that I got in that embrace could last me a lifetime, and it's still lasting me now. You know, when I looked at that little girl, you know, I thought I was strong, yeah, but she was the true meaning of strength. You know, she made me feel brave and courageous, even when I was the most scared, because of how brave and courageous she was. And the biggest lesson that I got from her is that she showed me that no matter how dark your surroundings are, how much pain you're in, whatever you're going through, that you can still put a smile on your face to lighten up someone else's life. And that's a lesson that I've carried on with me now. And if I had to look at and be in that moment every single day, and I had to watch that little girl and she had to go through what she went through. In the end, she ended up losing her life. Yeah. If I don't learn something and take something from that and be a better person as a result of it, for myself, but mainly for her and for other people, I don't know what would have made me change, you know? And that's a responsibility that I take now. And it's a debt that I owe to her, because everything that I am doing now and the life that I am lucky enough to live now and the person that I'm lucky enough to be now was as a result of the time that I spent with her. And I never hide that. I will never, ever hide that. If it wasn't for my daughter, I wouldn't be sitting in the seats and the shoes and the places that I am to this day. And I need to give back to this world for taking so much out of it for so long. And that's why I do the things that I do. That's why I am the man that I am. And that's why I'll continue to knock these walls down, to run over broken glass for the people I care about.
I think if you look at that ripple effect, brother, it is a powerful, powerful thing. You know, the tragedy that you went through, but the knock-on effect that that's had, you know, ultimately you lost the most precious life, but in turn, you've gone on to improve, change, and save so many lives. And that is a phenomenal thing. And why I think you are such a powerful presence and figure to have in this world right now is that there are so many people who have been through or are going through or will go through that in the future, and their outlook might be very different to yours. And actually, you are the strength and that beacon of light that they need. And I've said this before, there seems to be so few of those lights shining right now in this world. And I feel like the world is a fucking lost place right now. And it needs to find its way, and it needs figures like yourself to utilize their platform. And I think, and shed that light. I think there are so many figures in this space that they prioritize the materialism and the
Mm,
front, and they hide the insecurity and are ashamed of the flaw.
yeah.
And you're not. And I think that's a powerful, powerful thing. And hopefully so many more people can gain strength from something like that, where being vulnerable is a fucking power, and it's okay to be vulnerable because life will humble you in so many fucking different ways. You should never be ashamed of that.
You know, I learned being vulnerable because I was in the most vulnerable position that you could ever be in. Um, I wanted to show her. I loved her so much. I was so proud of her, and I was willing to show her at all costs. You know, no matter how I felt, no matter what I looked like, no matter the situation that we were in. So that was a start off of being vulnerable. But I'm gonna have to tell you something now, and this is one thing that I think a lot of people are afraid to do. But what was necessary in my life is, you know, when I lost my daughter, you know, I found the drink, yeah, and I made I made promises on a day, yeah. I made promises of the man that I was going to be and what I was going to do, and I found it very difficult, mate. You know, my life seemed to be moving in slow motion. It was like grayscale. Nothing seemed right. Everything seemed alien. I couldn't find a place where I seemed to fit in or people that I could relate to, and it became very lonely. And you know, I began to drink, and I was drinking, and I was drinking, and I was drinking because for some reason, I felt like that would numb the pain a little bit, or it would make tomorrow come a little quicker. And it was only waking up one morning, and this is the truth, where I felt that ashamed of what I was doing and who I was, that I just couldn't stop crying. And I literally thought that if she's looking at me in this second now, I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed, and I feel upset. And from that moment, I decided to air everything out. I had to sit with my family and I had to tell them who I was, what I'd done, and maybe anything that they didn't know about me before. Because I thought that it's only when everything is out on the table and I am at the bottom do I truly know the correct building steps that I need to put down to make myself the person that I need to be to achieve the things that I need to achieve for the person I need to do it for. So I just had to be honest, open, and transparent. And I found that that was the way to my true strength. And that's why I'll continue being that way now. But it takes you to be brave. You know, it was very embarrassing sitting down with the people I love and telling them about me. In some ways, it was very shameful, you know. And in a lot of ways, it was scary because I thought I've got a lot of making up to do to earn that respect back. But when I did that, it was one of the most empowering things I've ever done. And now that's why I'll always show my vulnerabilities, because I think, you know what, in life, I'm not the only person that's going to be feeling how I feel, you know, and by me sharing it, then maybe you can relate to me. And there's definitely going to be thousands of other people that can as well. And in showing that vulnerability, it shows that we're all not alone. Actually, a lot of us feel the same and we are together in this path. And I think it'll help people get a lot of stress off their shoulders if they open up. And I think it will allow people to understand the true building blocks to be the person they need to be on the other side of it.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, we had a girl, Lucy, on the podcast, and she had completed a 100-mile ultra marathon. And then she set herself
Good
the
going.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And she's a phenomenal human being. And then she set herself the David Goggins challenge. But she went into it with an injury, and only 26 miles into this challenge, she had to pull out. And her pride had taken such a hit where she's thinking, well, hang on a second, people have such a huge expectation of me as a person. I've just done a 100-mile ultra. Why can I not complete this Goggins challenge? 26 miles and pulling out. And she was umming and ahhing, and we were speaking about this, where she almost felt ashamed to promote it and showcase it to the world out of fear of that judgment, posted it. And she said it was the best decision she's ever made in her life because people really connected with her in that moment. You can't continuously just showcase this front of success and strength It's okay not to be okay. And for me, that was one of the defining moments where I really connected with her,
Yeah.
where she showed both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think it's a phenomenal thing that you are doing this, because I think what people need to understand, and I really do feel passionate about this, is that we're kind of going down a route right now where we're in a very similar space where, you know, we're probably seen as the more extreme end of the spectrum with what it is that we're doing. But what I've come to realize is that it's not the size of the challenge, but it's about the connection that you make with the people, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes if you and I continue down that path, or anyone for that matter, we go down that extreme route, I think it can be a very dangerous game to play. You know, I think you have to have that balance, right? Where I think it's showcasing to people that, yes, this is the route that I've taken, but at times I feel broken. Times I've had to reach out to the team members behind me to lift me back up. Because I think if you go into that space and you hide that side, it becomes detrimental, I think, to those around you. And that's why I admire the man that you are and the fact that you are able to express that.
But I don't see the benefit in hiding that side anyway. I genuinely don't.
Because the world's about wins now, isn't it? I think that's the problem. It's smoke and mirrors. It's
But-
all about fake it till you make it.
But what is a win? For me, bouncing back from adversity is a win. There's one thing for sure in life. Yeah, we're all gonna face adversity. We're all gonna lose somebody. We're all gonna have situations that wind us, that take the legs from beneath us, right? And one of the things that people find it really hard to do these days is bounce back. But it's one thing that all of us are gonna have to do. I think the biggest wins in life aren't the monumental ones. The biggest wins in life are when you can bounce back from being knocked down, when you can stand back on your feet when you fall, when you can rise no matter what adversity is around you. That's the true strength and that's the true power, because adversity is something in life that we are all going to face. They're the wins for me. I think, like that lady you just talked about, the fact that she's able to bounce back from that, that is just as good as her completing that. The fact that she had the courage to post it is just as good as her completing it. Because guess what? She'll probably go on and do it next year and complete it anyway. In life, everything isn't perfect. We all fucking know that. I've had struggle after struggle after struggle in my life. And it's not, the success of my life isn't where I stand today. The success of my life is how I'm still standing where I'm standing today after everything that I've been through. That's the benefit for me. And that's why I believe there's strength in my story, because there's always somebody that can relate to it in some way or form. I think you're probably the same as me, where it's not the achievement that you remember, it's the struggle and adversity that you overcome within it, that togetherness, that bond, that united front, that power in those moments of struggle that you remember more than the achievement itself. When you climb a mountain, you don't remember standing on the top. After you've seen the view, it's fucking boring. You remember every single fucking step on the way up there and the journey that you learned from. That is the power. It's the journey to the mountaintop, not the mountaintop itself, which will define you as a person. And there's a lot of adversity that goes in through that. It's not all like smooth striding.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, so on the final marathon of 76, yeah.
Give me some tips, please.
There was a moment with Chris Taylor. So he was my brother who helped me. He was the backbone of that challenge. And there was a moment where we were just about to finish up at Buckingham Palace, and everyone congregated there for the final stretch. And he took me up down the road and he gave me a hug. And he started to tear up. And Chris is a very, very tough cookie. And although he's very emotional when he's in that moment and he has to lead you and guide you, it's not that he hides it, but he puts you first. But in that moment, he let that barrier down. And although that finish line was one of the most special periods of my life, that moment to me meant so much because of what we'd been through. And the fact that he enabled himself to express that to me, that moment meant so much to me, how much it had impacted him as much as it did I. And that's what I mean by, like, when you were touching on there, that finish line. Again, it wasn't actually finishing the challenge. It was the fact that my mum and my dad, who had such a turbulent marriage and, as much as they are amazing together, sometimes can't really stand to be close to one another. It was the fact that both of them were together in unity for me.
Yeah.
And I got to hug them both. And that meant so much to me that people could just drop their bullshit for 1 second for something that was so much bigger.
It brings people together.
Oh, in such a powerful way. I think when you've been through things in life, bud, it gives you that clarity. And sometimes it's not easy to see for some. Some decide maybe not to take that into account. But I think when you embrace it, I think you start to realize what's really fucking important in life and what's not.
Mate, I'm gonna say something now. All I have left, in my life is looking in the mirror at the end of the day and knowing that that I've done every single thing I was supposed to have done that day. Did I give it my all today? Did I quit today? Did I persevere through adversity today? Did I still stand through my struggle today? That's all I have left. And when I look in the mirror at night time and I look at a man that's done everything he could do that day, that gives me something more than happiness. Do you know what I mean? That gives me self-worth. That gives me self-confidence. That gives me all of these things that just seeking for happiness can't do. And I always come across maybe a bit harsh, maybe a bit full on when I talk about this, yeah. But when I look back at, the toughest time of my life, and, I've carried this on with me now because of how powerful it was. No matter how I felt during those 6 months when my daughter was ill, I made sure that every single time that my daughter see me, I had a smile on my face. I made sure that she would never, ever know that I am sad, upset, or down. I turned up every single day, no matter how tired I was, how sad I was, how upset I was. And believe me, I was tired. I was sad. I was upset. So much so that sometimes I felt like I couldn't even move. Now, that journey didn't play out the way I wanted it to. It really didn't. But when I look back at it now, through the toughest time of my life, I had the most incredible 6 months I will ever have again on this world. And I can look back knowing that I gave every single thing I could to making it as beautiful as it possibly could be. And I can't look back with any regrets. So I now know going forward, with daily struggles, with daily challenges, with world's first attempts that no one's ever done before, that the price of pain, or the weight of pain, will last for a moment. It soon shall pass. The price of quitting and the price of regret will last with you forever. And that's why I will always say to people, you can get up. You can give everything you've got. And you should, no matter how you feel. Not because I'm telling you to, not because you think you're strong enough, not because, it's not okay to be okay, but because when you look back when that moment has passed, you'll be able to be proud of the person that you were, and you'll be able to live the rest of your life free and not hung up by everything that you didn't do because you became the most important person in that moment, because you never ever will be.
We were kind of touching on this before we kicked this off, where, it seems to be sort of like one thing after the next. But that comes from a passionate place and also a love for what it is that you are doing. The purpose is so much bigger than you, but ultimately you have to understand yourself and, I guess, how sustainable that is. Because naturally, as we get a little bit older, the body starts to get a little bit more rusty. We're getting older.
I went to the garden centre, I went to the garden centre yesterday. That's a true marker of how old you get. When I was on the way, I was writing a caption, and I was like, when you go to the garden centre, you know you're getting old, So yeah, I know I'm getting older.
So funny you say that, because I literally just had 3 olive trees removed by a technician of trees. I don't even know what his title is. I'm literally sat there, and I think when you're getting old, when you put your arms, I don't know if you've got to that point yet where you walk around with your arms behind your back. It's such a comfortable spot. I'm stood there looking at this guy with my arms behind my back, asking him questions about olive trees, going, when did this happen?
Yeah, shit has changed. Shit has changed.
This week's episode is sponsored by Runner. Runner is a personalized running coaching app helping runners of all abilities train for any goal. From a first 5K to a marathon, even an ultra marathon. When the time is right for you, your plan can be created within a minute and ready to go. With each plan, Runner provides all the help a runner requires, including strength and conditioning, and you can also reach out to the team at any time via the support tab inside the app. For a 2-week free trial on any personalized running plan, use the code PHOENIX. No matter your goal, Runner is there to help you achieve it.
When it comes to you, it's such a unique situation where you are a determined individual. Physically, people look at you and they can tell you that you have that ability too. But also, what makes you unique is the superpower that you have, which is the psychological state that you find yourself in. Now, very few people in this world will understand loss like you will. For me, my motivation is that I almost lost my life to depression, right? Mental illness almost killed me. So I feel like I've got a second chance at life. And so that's what spurs me on, is that every time I step my foot on that start line, I know that I have an opportunity to save another life because too many are being lost. For you, it's the same situation. Do you think that plays a massive factor in enabling you to continue doing what it is that you are?
For me, it's an incredible driving force for me to have, and I think what I'm trying to do is just is really, if I'm going to be completely honest, it's secondary. The reason why it's secondary is because initially all I wanted to do was take my daughter on a journey. I simply wanted to take her on a journey. That was it. And then through me taking her on a journey and connecting with that, all of these things start to happen. And then like the picture got bigger. And then I started to realize how many people it was helping, how many lives it was affecting. And you start to feel this kind of pressure, don't you? Like for me, I know what I want. I know what I need to do. The worst thing you can tell me is that I'm doing too much. It'll make me want to fucking do more. Yeah. I know who I need to be now. I know what I need to achieve. I know who I need to achieve it for. And I know the lengths that I need to go to achieve it. If I want to achieve something in this world that no one has ever achieved before, if I want to climb to heights that no one has ever climbed before, I need to do shit that no one has ever done before. Where's the fucking balance in that? And I think sometimes in this world, right, it's like you mentioned, you said a quote, you said a statement, you said it's okay to not be okay. No, it's not. It's actually not.
You don't think it's okay not to be okay?
It's not okay, is it? Where were you? Where were you? Where were you when you were not okay? I know where I was when I wasn't okay. Where I was standing on a bridge above a train track. Yeah, of course, right? What I'm trying to say to people is this statement's a bit off, right?
Yeah, but I think
we are all gonna feel in this position. It's normal for all of us to feel this way. It's not okay. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why you're doing what you're doing. It's being in this environment where if someone is not okay, they shouldn't feel alone, but they should be encouraged that there's active ways to get out of this position. There is active ways to climb out of this hole because the position that they're in at the minute is not all right, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're not alone. They're not the only ones that are sitting in it. Because guess what? I've been there. You've been there. You've probably been there before. But let's find an active step forward to try and get out of it. And that's the movement that I'm trying to create. I don't want people to feel that it's okay where they are and how they're feeling, because I've been there and it isn't okay. But I also want them to know that they're not alone and there's people around them that can help them. And if they really want to do something about it, the main thing that I want to do is give people the belief to know that they can. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, I'm listen, what you've just said there, I don't disagree with a single point. What I would counter that with, though, is again, I think that's the interpretation of that saying of it's okay not to be okay. What I'm trying to say, and I think a lot of people would say, is that I'm not trying to say to somebody that when you find yourself in a tough spot, it's okay to be there. It's not okay. No one should have to feel that way in that moment. No one should have to struggle with bipolar. No one should have to lose a loved one. No one should ever be cheated on. But sadly, that's the reality of life.
Yeah.
What I think the meaning of that saying, though, is that it's okay to accept that situation, but know that there are people there that are there to guide and
Oh,
support you through it.
100%.
For me, I felt so much shame, Ash, throughout my life that I struggled with my mental illness
Yeah.
to the point where I almost lost my life. I felt ashamed that when I became a father, that's what my daughter would think of me before she could even speak. But then I got to the point where I went, do you know what? This is who I am. If I go through life where my narrative is I am Joshua Patterson, I struggle from depression, I have anxiety, then that's what my daughter or anyone for that matter around me will think of me. Whereas if I make my narrative, this is my situation, but like yourself, I'm going to fucking wake up every day and I'm going to make every fucking day count and I'm going to help as many people who find themselves in a similar situation to me as possible. That's what my narrative then becomes.
Yeah.
Struggling with my mental health is like a secondary thing where, again, when my daughter, and God forbid she ever goes through that, finds that she has those struggles, it's normalizing that for her to go, listen, it's okay to be a certain way, but you also have the resources to make something of that.
Mate, I ain't okay now. But I one thing that I try and tell people is like, people will look at me and think, yeah, it's all right, well done, Ash, you've got there. I have to get there every day. There's not a morning that I wake up when I'm not sad. There's not a time in the day where I don't pick up my phone and, and you'll see my screensaver and it's my daughter on there. It doesn't cut me. There's not a time or a day with the amount that I do where I don't face adversity, struggle, stress, anxiety, the lot. There's not a single day. It's not a single day where I think, yeah, it's a good day. I'm totally happy. Never. That's why, every day I do what I do to combat that, to try and reverse those effects, to try and mitigate them, to try and compartmentalize them into this box so everything else around it can be grey and powerful. There's not a single day where I am okay. I just work at being a little bit better. And I think that was the key thing for me. It's when I speak to people, it's like, and I can relate to what you're saying now. Like, it's all right that you're feeling like this. It's actually fine. I feel like it a lot. And it was me becoming very competent at implementing mechanisms to just daily combat it. And you probably do the same. It's like that routine. It's like, I know 100% that if I have a good workout that day, no matter how I'm feeling, I'm going to feel better afterwards than before I started. 100%. That's the easiest thing to do. And then you start finding more steps like that to put into every single day. And then guess what? By the end of the week, you're feeling better. Like, I look at it now, because of this challenge and because of the way my life's gone, I haven't drank for the last 8 months. It's not because I was an alcoholic. It's not because, I've quit drinking and I can never touch it again. I just made a conscious effort that I really wanted to push hard this year, and the first steps to not drinking were quite difficult, became a week, 2 weeks. Then after a month, I didn't really miss it. What that gave me the opportunity to do is do things that were going to make me better every single day. And when you get into a routine of doing the right things and being competent in doing what's necessary, surprising what tools in your armor you gain to combat all this shit that can come at you in life. Like, I have never felt kind of more assured within myself and who I am than I felt now. And I know what that is. It's not pushing myself like a psychopath. It's just being competent in doing what's necessary. And no matter how hard it gets, just finding that little bit of strength, not to be 100%, but to show up. Mm-hmm. I think showing up is one of the most crucial things you can do. You're never going to be 100% every day. No one is. But if you show up every day without fail, whether you're 1%, 2%, whatever it is, showing up is just enough, and that's what I do. And that's what I'm going to try and do in these challenges. That's why these challenges are so important, because it helps you relay things into real life. It's like when you ran, how many was it, 70?
76.
Which day were you 100% then? None. What, Davey? You're not 100% after the first one.
Well, I had to resort to an alter ego called the Phoenix. I was
Find the Phoenix.
I was a cacaring bird. Like literally, when I was struggling, the boys would have to cacar to get me out of my funk, to get me going the next day. But listen, we have to find what works for us individually, right?
Yeah.
What I'm interested to know with you is, who is your guide? Like, I've got several people in my life where, you know, if I'm breaking myself, or if they see me going into a certain headspace, or if I need reining in constructively at certain times, you know, I respect them enough to listen to what it is that they're saying. Do you have someone like that in your life? Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me really sad to think about it. But I can promise you, anytime that I'm about to step out of line, I look up and I remember who's watching. Anytime that I'm thinking about quitting, I look up and I remember who went through worse. Anytime I think that I can't, I look up to that person that's always made me believe that I can. And she is my guide. She is my guardian. She is my little girl. You know, she's my hero. That's who my hero is. I found it really hard all my life to be told anything by anyone. Not because I was naughty as a child, or not because I'm rebellious as a man, you know. I'm a people person. I get on with everybody, but I find it really hard for people to tell me what to do, for me to be put in that box. And she's the only person that can do it. And she does it every single time without fail. I look at my life, right, before Azaylia to after Azaylia, and I've achieved more in these last 3 years than I have done in my entire life. There's got to be a reason for that.
I relate to that, man. I've said that.
And this is what I say to people, that, you know, there's one thing for sure, yeah. No matter who you are in this world, we're all going to have lost somebody. We're all going to lose somebody at some point, you know. It could be your mom, could be your dad, could be both, you know. If you're like me, it could be a child. And grief is a very, very difficult kind of process to navigate. There are so many different waves, emotions to grief that, you know, every single week or every single year, something else will catch you out. But for me, the most empowering thing that I've done is I just keep Azaylia very present in my life. You know, she is a huge part of my life. You know, I regularly visit her, I talk about her, and I'm not ashamed about, you know, vocalizing any emotions that I feel that time that are as a result of losing her. And that's been one of my main strengths. And that's been something that has given me strength. And that's a message that I'd like to say, just as much as talking about mental health. If you're struggling with grief, I think you should talk about the people that you've loved and you've lost. And I think the reason why we're hurting so much is also a beautiful thing, because we're hurting so much because of how much we loved. And I think if people are more comfortable talking about things like that, I think they'd find their own strength within the pain that they're feeling. I was going to ask you a question, yeah, because I picked up something when you were saying about people being judgmental. Because I've got something to say about this, but I wanted to hear why you think people are judgmental.
I'm sort of the odd one out in my family, in my friendship group. I've always been very different to everybody else. And some respect that, some appreciate it, some admire that, some question it. More often than not, they question it. And so I think when you are questioned so much in your life, we are human, you start to question yourself. And there has been judgment of the decisions I've made. And it has been deep rooted, and those that are close to me will understand what those struggles were.
Are we talking about, i.e., like you choosing to go on these
these challenges and the level of time that I put or invest my time into it?
I'm gonna say something, yeah, based on that, yeah. I look back to my upbringing, yeah, and my mom was my primary carer, yeah, but you know my dad was there as well. one of the best things that my dad could have ever done was be him. My dad was strong. He was fit. I looked up to him. I was inspired by him. I wanted to be like him, so much so that, here I am sitting. Here I am sitting today. And if what you're doing is helping and inspiring thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, why would that not help and inspire your child?
But that's a good question. But I think that the answer to that, I think, is you can understand that because this is the position you find yourself in. When what we do is alien to another person, if the majority of their environment misinterpret that, then that naturally is how they foresee it, right? So it's a case of continuity. I think you just have to be consistent with these things and how you articulate yourself, and also people seeing the repercussions that come off the back of what it is that you were doing. So for me, it was a case of, rather than proving these individuals wrong, I had to keep proving myself right.
It's only ever yourself in life that you have to prove right. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of messages that I've had that have been extremely negative around my situation have been disgusting, have been hurtful, have been damaging, and couldn't be more incorrect. I've had people, I've had to wake up to, messages of people telling me that I was happy that my daughter had died. I have people telling me that I shouldn't talk about her again because she's dead and she's in the ground. I have people, attacking her life, attacking me as a parent, attacking my son now, attacking my family every single day. Every single day. There's one thing about somebody talking about the way you look or your character or how you've acted on TV. There's another thing when people are mocking your deceased child and your newborn son. When they're affecting, your life, maybe your career, the mental health of the people around you, because maybe they're not as strong as you are. And when all this was happening, that's when it became evident to me that I don't need to prove anybody wrong. I only need to prove myself right. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. And I know who I'm doing it for. And that's good enough for me.
I hosted a run or organised a run for Hardest Geezer on Saturday. And
what an achievement, by the way.
And
wow.
he is, I can honestly say, I mean, I've only met him once, but he is a very, very ordinary, lovely, humble lad.
Yeah.
And although he's shot into the stars now because of his accomplishment, it's not changed him. And he's got a phenomenal girlfriend as well, who's so level-headed, and they're a great team. And what I found really alarming is that when we talk about these beacons of light, he's one of them. He makes me feel proud to be British because of what he's achieved. He's one of our own. But also the impact that he's had on the broader world with his running. People are inspired to run because of him. And what was so special about Saturday was, I think almost or over 1,500 people came to run to show support to this lad. He is such an inspiration. And that lad has been running for over a year. And my point is, within 4 days of him achieving that, the media already are trying to rip him apart and question whether he was the first person to run the length of Africa. People commenting on his post, questioning whether he was the man. Why? Why do we as a race feel we have to shred apart every bit of positive? And that for me, like what you were touching on there when people comment on you, there is nothing in this world you can do. There is no amount of positives you can do or impacts you can make in people's lives that will ever stop a person having a reason to criticize you. Because unfortunately, Ash, there are too many people who are traumatized in this world, who don't want
with their own life,
who are willing to embrace what has happened, to do the work and equally try and make that positive impact. They would rather be the victim for the rest of their life. And unfortunately, there's been quite a few people like that in my life where I've had to wash my hands of them, because it gets to the point where you can only offer that individual so much support. And if they're unwilling to do that work for themselves, then I don't have the time for them. And I know to some individuals who hear that, that might sound harsh, but
It
you are
is
who you
not.
surround yourself with.
It's not harsh.
And that negative energy will radiate onto you too. The positive is the most important thing.
Yeah, you're 100% right. There's only so much you can do. More than anything, I didn't come today so I could get my face on a podcast. I came today out of the respect of what you'd achieved. That's why. I'm grateful to be sitting across the table from you. I'm looking forward to get some tips from you after. I love, appreciate, respect, and value not necessarily people that have just achieved something, but the effort and the commitment that people put into being better and to doing something for the world. That's what means something to me. I look in admiration at people that are doing well. I also look at admiration at people that are making the most of their situation. I also look and get inspired by maybe seeing the person on the street that's not a runner, but is going out every single day and getting it done and trying. I'm the kind of person that I see like someone running down the street who doesn't look like a runner, and I wind my window down and shout, "Let's go, champ." I love it.
Like, it comes down to two things, actually. What purpose you have in life and your own fulfillment. If you are a fulfilled person in life, you don't have the energy or time to think of others in that way. There's no sense.
Yeah.
Why would you? And I think just keep doing what you're doing. And that's why, for me, this podcast had to be set up, because I wanted to get individuals like yourself onto it, because I think there are so many phenomenal and very ordinary people in this world that have taken on doing these sorts of things. And it inspires such a broad demographic, like you touched on there. For me, there's no right or wrong. How you approach things, how I approach things, how Ross Edgley approaches things, Hardest Geezer or Lucy, whoever it is comes on the podcast, we're all very different. But it's amazing the impact that we can make collectively. So the more we can have these conversations, hopefully the more individuals we can connect with, and they'll go on and do the same for themselves. Someone today doesn't have to listen to this conversation and be like, shit, I need to do John O'Groats to Land's End 3 times. I got to bench press 120 kilos. If you can just get out that door today and just get some fresh air, if that's your biggest struggle in life right now, then that makes me a happy person. It's all relative to the individual.
What would what is the hardest step, but also the easiest with the right mindset? The first one. And if you can just change your mindset, that initial part of it, life becomes incredible. The reason I say this is because when I started running after, losing my daughter, I went out to the park and I could run 600 meters. I remember it on my Strava, embarrassing, 600 meters. So then I have a break, go back out, run 600 meters. I just believed I needed to be outside because that's where she could see me. And I just kept running these loops till I could run 1,000, 5K, 10K. Then I'm running like 40 miles. The next minute I'm running an ultra marathon. I decided that I nearly done something very stupid, like jump off a bridge. Yeah. I realized in that moment that, I'll be putting the rest of my family under the same pain that I'm feeling now. I couldn't do that. If I was going to jump, I'm going to jump properly. What's the one thing you're scared of, Ash? What's the one thing you don't like? Heights, and you've got vertigo. Okay, I'm going to get my skydiving license. Next week, I flew out, got my skydiving license and kept jumping out of a plane. Everything that I have done and achieved is not been something that I'm naturally good at. Do I look like your natural, 1,000-mile runner or 1,000-mile kayaker? No, I'm built like a fucking wide receiver in the NFL. Do you know what I mean?
I was going to say a double-decker bus, but yeah, wide receiver.
I'll take that. Yeah, I'm built like a double-decker bus. But it's that first step into doing something with belief that you can, with that intent. I think a lot of people struggle with the first step. It's not the journey that's hard. It's starting and getting that first step. And I wish there was just, and what I'm trying to do is just initiate people to take the first step with a bit of faith, with a bit of hope, with a bit of belief, because they'll be very surprised in where it can take them. And it can take them to fantastic and phenomenal places, because every step after that first step is momentum. With momentum, you become like a juggernaut, an unstoppable force of nature. And when you're one of those, there is nothing going forward, even if it is challenging, that you can't overcome. Take the first step. It's the hardest, but the easiest one you'll ever take, and the most beneficial.
I mean, your next step is a lot of steps, my man. I mean, you've taken on one hell of a challenge. For anyone that isn't aware, on the 24th of April, Ash has basically set himself what, I perceive as one hell of a challenge. He is going to be doing John O'Groats to Land's End 3 times consecutively. So he'll be running it first, followed by the cycle, and then ending it with kayaking. I'm so excited to see this unfold. And
I've done, I've ran 100 mile plus ultra. I've cycled 1,000 miles. I've done some pretty gnarly kayak races, a Thames 125 and the Yukon 1000. Claimed to be, one of the toughest, endurance survival races in the world. And it was hard. But I got back and I think it was my daughter's birthday and I was at a resting place with my family and I just thought, I want to do something which really shows how much I love you. I want to connect with you, in a space and on a level that I never have before. In my head, I thought, I want a nation to rise this summer. I want people that are probably struggling themselves or that are going through something to feel that they are part of a movement where they are included and they can get out and we can get together and push forward on a united front for the benefit of ourselves, but mainly for the benefit of these children who so desperately need it. Give people a reason to get outside. Give them camaraderie. Give them a space where they feel safe and give them a moment that they will never, ever forget. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to raise a lot of money. So I thought it's got to be long, 3 months. I wanted to raise a lot of awareness. So it's got to be over a distance because people have got to see it. If someone hasn't seen it in the first week, they've got to see it by the 91st day. And I also thought that I've done quite a lot of exceptional things, but someone else has always done it. And I thought, how can I make this achievement stand out? How can I make my daughter's legacy go further? How can I put her name down on something that has been the first time it's ever done in history? And that's why I thought of this. I thought, if you can cycle it, you probably can't run it. If you can run it, you definitely can't kayak it. And if you can kayak it, you probably can't do either of the other two. And I decided to put all 3 together.
For anyone that's listening, like, what point can they come and support you on it?
They can come anytime. I want this to be a movement. I want it to be a domino effect that keeps on growing. I mean, we're starting on the 24th of April in Land's End, and we're going to be publishing, the route. We're going to be publishing start and finish locations every single day. And we're going to be publishing times where you can expect, to meet us. Like, this really isn't about the achievement if I finish. It's not. At least my daughter's name can go down on the world first. That's what means something. But this is about, how much money can be raised for these children, because 3% of, cancer research funding that goes to them is not enough. It's the number 1 killer of children. The number 1 killer of children in the UK. It's scary. And 3% is not enough. That's why we're trying to do the incredible work that we're doing with the Azaylia Foundation to make that difference in that space, because that is the illness that took my daughter away from me. And it's the illness that is taking too many of our children here in the UK. So I'm hoping it raises a lot of money. I'm hoping it raises a lot of awareness. I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of advocacy, during the challenge as well. And I hope that a lot of people this summer can feel proud of themselves because they're stepping out. If you want to come clap, if you want to come cheer, if you want to get a sweaty hug or you want to go and lay down some miles, get out. Because it really isn't about me. I'm a vessel in this movement. And if I can, influence positive change, if I can influence people to feel great, if I can influence a bright future for these kids, that's what it's about. I just want everyone to get together and come and get shit done.
I can't wait. I'm definitely going to come join you for a leg with the running. I'll bring my entourage. I'll bring some people to come support you too, because it's going to be special. And like I said, just watching it unfold is going to be one phenomenal experience. And it's so exciting that I think once again, 2 nations can experience something of this magnitude. And I really do hope and I do believe that people are going to get behind this. Mate, I fucking love these conversations. Like, this is my greatest passion in life, and you can give as much as you receive. And like, I learned so much as I'm sure the person who's listening to these episodes will. But it's so exciting seeing each individual's journey, and for you to be embarking on what you're about to now. Like, I just feel it's a real blessing for you to have made the time to come and join this just before you go on to it? Because I'm sure the person I'm going to speak to after it is going to be very different, slightly husky.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
Sexy voice, but husky.
Sexy voice, looks like shit. Anyway.
Brother, though, I'm proud of you, and I just wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, bro. And thank you for having me.
Big
I
love.
appreciate it.
Yes, brother, give me a hug.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, you fatted biscuit, all I ask of you in return is that you push that subscribe button and leave a review. Unless it's a bad one, you can keep that, you sausage. Your support, though, makes such a difference to this podcast and enables it to grow and connect with even more people around the world.